Hello and welcome to New Economic Thinking. I'm here this morning with Gabriela Ramos, who is the Chief of Staff of the OECD and Sherpa to the G20. Gabriela, thank you very much for joining me today. You have an interesting perspective. You're, of course, a key figure in the OECD. You're also a woman, Mexican, so you have an interesting perspective on the issue of inequality, which takes many forms. It obviously takes north-south form, and then there's the issue of gender inequality. I'm interested in your perspective as a Mexican. It's an interesting country because it's been a laboratory for a lot of these neoliberal projects that are supposedly supposed to reduce inequality and improve the divide between North and South with free trade agreements, etc. Do you think Mexico has fared well in the policy environment we've had over the last 30 years on aggregate?
That's a rhetorical question.
I like
growing at 0.6% during 20 years, I don't think is fantastic for a country like Mexico. I think that they took the right choices in terms of opening up the economy and trying to liberate the market forces to generate growth. I believe they missed the other part, which is the effort to increase investment in infrastructure, investment in skills, investment in technology. And I think they missed the opportunity to have a more competitive markets. They have now addressed those issues. I think that they are the country in the OECD and in the G20 that have pursued the most ambitious set of reforms on the telecom, on the energy, on the education, and they may pave the way for a much brighter future. But it has not worked well, and it has not worked well because I think it was a not very balanced package. To boost growth and development. You still have 50% of the population living below poverty lines. You still have this very great divide. The average income of the top 10% to the top lower percent is 25 times. I think that there's lots to do in my beautiful country. But I think that they're taking the right decisions, at least, to redress that.
On balance, do you think NAFTA was a good thing or a bad thing for the Mexican economy, the free trade agreement?
I think it was a missed opportunity.
In what regard?
Regarding the fact that they could have really boosted the growth and take advantage of these magnificent assets. I would not say that they should have not gone for NAFTA. I would say they should have always gone for NAFTA, because reality matters. Their geographical reality is there. They are close to the most important economy still in the world. The only point is that they did not supported the process internally, the domestic market, the skills, as I said, the technology, the networks. The fact that you had a monopoly on the telecom did not allow for technology to diffuse and disseminate. The fact that you have a very slim government that was cutting back all of the areas of investment did not allow to build up the infrastructure that would have made Mexico a big potential for really taking advantage of NAFTA. So the point is not NAFTA or not NAFTA, is what policies you took to really take advantage to this new framework, and they were not there.
There is a school of thought, for example, the so-called immigration problem that the Americans all like to talk about, is a direct product of NAFTA, to the extent that the argument goes that NAFTA killed off the Mexican agricultural industry, thereby necessitating a large number of migrant workers to head towards the United States to find employment.
Migration to the U.S., I think, has been a reality for the past 2 centuries. And as long as you have wage differentials of the sort you find in these two economies, you will have migration, even if Mexico would arrive to a middle-class average for the whole population. This differential will always call for migration. I don't think that's a point. And I don't think that NAFTA produced more migration or less migration. I think it's just the fact that we had a very disappointing performance, and people didn't have any possibilities in their own cities, and they migrate. So that's a reality.
But you're more hopeful now with the current government than you've been in some time, it sounds
like. I'm more hopeful because I think that they are very realistic. One of the problems, I have to say, when you talk about this very ideological move in terms of opening markets and signing agreements and it was almost like magic. You sign an agreement, it's done. It's not. You need to implement, and in countries like Mexico, where the institutional setting is not yet there for a powerful implementation, a powerful and effective implementation, you need to take a hard look at that. It's not only to approve, it's not like Sweden. Sweden approves a law, and the law will be enacted and implemented.
You need to have some
in
sort
Mexico,
of proper institutional
no,
structures.
you need really to take a look at the institutions. And that's what they're doing now, and that's what is encouraging. I am a passionate of education policies. The reform they produce for education is first class, but it will not mean anything if they don't go to see how do they train the teachers they have, how do they build the institutions to evaluate the outcomes of the teachers, how do they train the public officials that will be administering the system even at the IT level. Or these are very important aspects of a country that is not so developed in terms of the institutional settings. And they're taking a hard look at that, which is encouraging.
Let me shift the topic over to gender inequality. You, on an individual basis, are a clear example of success as far as overcoming gender inequality, clearly within your position of the OECD. What's your overall assessment? Is this a problem that is becoming alleviated, or is it still something that policymakers need to devote a considerable amount of attention to?
Is a terrible disappointment. Terrible, because I think that the progress that have been made in all the areas, probably education is the area where we have more progress, and you see more girls in school, succeeding in school, and also having a tertiary education all over the world. That's fine. Employment is a big disappointment. You still have gender gaps in labor force participation. Canada is the best performing country, 6 points. There's nothing. My country, you have 30 points. On average, you have 20 at the OECD, which is very large, and in general, it's very high. And if you move to women entrepreneurship, and we're only talking about economic empowerment, I'm not talking about all of the other areas of legal status or human rights, which is as important, it's a great disappointment. So I believe that inequality also has a gender aspect that has to be addressed. And if nothing works, I think you should go for targets. And that's what we did at the G20. We arrived to a target to increase labor force participation 25% by 2025. And so that's a way, because it's not working.
That's a global goal, 25% labor force participation by women, or?
It's a goal for the G20 countries, which is not going to be easy, because you have, as I said, from Canada to Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
And so very different context, but that's the way we should do it, because it's really not working. You need to find a way to create the conditions, including family-friendly policies, that will be also for men, because then men will also take advantage of family-friendly policies to balance.
Assuming that's what they want. I mean, the argument is that if you give men paternity leave, that they'll take that.
I'm sure they want.
Because in fact, as you say, it's hard to disentangle the economic empowerment issues from the caregiving issues, for example. And it seems to me that you require some form of policy which incorporates the so-called unpaid work, which is done largely by women in the area of caregiving, for example, in order to achieve some form of improvement in gender inequality.
No, of course you need support systems. Of course you need to change the culture to make childbearing a dual responsibility. But there are many other aspects in which you need very clear interventions. For example, not penalizing the double income. When you have a household with two people that work, usually you have this tax that penalizes the second income earner. But there are other aspects that are more subtle, and that would need also some kind of government intervention.
Such as?
Why girls does not choose any discipline related to science, technology, or mathematics. Why you see so few going for engineering. And these are the subject areas that are the best paid in the market. So there is also this cultural issue in which we do not push our girls to have the ambition to thrive in areas that are seen as male-dominated. And then
why do you think that is?
It's cultural. It's cultural. It starts when you tell a girl how beautiful you are and you tell a boy how smart and strong you are. It's really cultural. And I have to say, this is a personal anecdote, but my daughter loves science, and she has 15 average on science, but she has 20 average on English, and she was being advised to go for English, for literature, and she had to fight to say, no, I want to be a scientist. So the school systems, the way we guide our girls in terms of what kind of disciplines they can choose is very important. Their self-esteem, I don't know why, but the PISA study has documented that girls have less self-confidence when they are addressing math issues. Why? I don't know, but there's something we should be doing about it.
Do you think part of the solution might be separate schools for boys and girls, for example?
Not at all. Not at all. I think that it goes again, and you know the magic of these policies is that it's not only related to girls, that you should encourage and increase their self-esteem. It goes to take a very hard look at the individual needs in the school systems, not to have a massive production of people, but to have a more tailored tools to address individual needs. That goes for boys that might be weak in certain areas and that might need support, and girls that maybe need to address this question of self-confidence. So it's again a different way of providing the services, and we go back to this question of equality of opportunities.
Well, it is interesting. I was chatting to one of your colleagues, Monica Kaiser, about this particular point on gender inequality, and she had written a very interesting piece pointing out that 100 years ago, women were doing a lot of the same jobs as men in construction, the factories, plumbers, electricians. Then she said, well, of course, the issue was you had a war going on, and so women were forced to take those jobs. And I said, do we need another global conflict in order to ensure a comparable level of gender equality?
You know what is going to help us, which is very interesting? Aging. Go to Japan. They're not very fond of migration.
Yes, I think
they
that's
are
right.
aging amazingly fast.
And so it's
and
a
they
demographic
have
problem.
a vast population of women that are well educated. And now, because they have no way to fill the jobs, okay, they're accepting women. So it's the Abenomics and the womenomics is becoming a reality.
That seems to be an important consideration, especially from countries suffering from adverse demographic trends. That you incorporate women into more women into the workforce, and you create a new exogenous source of demand. That seems to be a growing trend, as you say, in Japan and in other countries as well.
Yeah. But I guess that it's just realizing that you have an asset there in which all of these countries have been investing. We all are disappointed at the economic perspectives and the recovery of the crisis, a slow growth, the dangers, the risks are still there, high unemployment, credit not flowing as it should, productivity stagnant. So if you take a look at the whole package of how the economic outlook is developing, you have been investing in skills, you have been investing in girls, you have been investing in women, and you don't use them. You just leave it there. I think there is economic rationale that is very important, and that probably will help us change this outcome.
One of the great underutilized resources that we have still are women.
I don't like to be called like that, but
No.
But if you want
And I apologize
if
for all women out there.
if that's going to help us to really go for the policies that will help women to overcome the obstacles to participate in the labor market, be it.
You're a stunning example of what can be achieved, and I hope you'll be a great role model. Gabriela Ramos, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thanks to you, and thanks for the good work.